there, Alaskans, wherever you are. Welcome to the Must Read Alaska Show. Coming to you from somewhere in Alaska. This is the place where we talk about, you guessed it, Alaska. Where we keep the mainstream media on their toes and where we are standing up for what's right in a world run by leftists. You can find out more by heading over to mustreadalaska.com and also checking out the Must Read Alaska YouTube channel for some really great content. But first, let's get this party started.
Welcome, everybody, to the Must Read Alaska Show. I'm your host, John Quick, coming to you live from somewhere in Alaska. We got a Sunday special edition here, folks. We have my friend, Mr. Colby Way. And before I bring him on the show, I just want to say that Mr. Way is one of those teachers. We all had one of those teachers growing up that was impactful in our lives, right? Maybe we had one, maybe we had two, maybe it took a while and we didn't have one till college. But Mr. Way, and probably his wife too, are those types of teachers. They go above and beyond, and we find it's just a blessing to have them in our community. So, Mr. Way, without further ado, welcome to the Must Read Alaska Show.
John, I really appreciate it here. Yeah, and as a friend and as a community member, it's great to be here tonight. Yes.
Well, one of the things you do is every Saturday morning you read to the kids at the Nikiski hardware store. Tell folks a little bit about that, and then we'll jump into the school stuff.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's just kind of one of those fortunate things that came out of some remote learning that we had to transition to there for a little bit. We just needed some numbers, and we just wanted kids getting in front of books and students being interested in books. So we have a great partnership with our local hardware store. And it was just kind of one of those afternoon conversations of this is something we can do. I have a long list of children's books that are loved by many. And honestly, it started sitting, as we call it in elementary school, crisscross applesauce on the back floor with an iPad. And now it's grown to a live audience and kind of a following across America and the world. So it's been really neat to have that opportunity.
Yeah, this is a great picture of, I think during COVID, I think it's oftentimes easier to like get mad at people and to be pissed and whatever. And this is a great picture of what it looks like for a public school to partner up with a private business and to do something for the community. I happen to be lucky enough to be one of the owners at the hardware store, so I know a little bit extra than probably what the readers are know. And so it's just been a beautiful partnership. What, 2 years now of doing this, maybe even longer?
4. We're on year 4 right now. I know. It's kind of funny. We say, we keep getting signed on for another 20 episode seasons. So, we'll keep coming back.
So folks out there, this, you could be doing this in your own community, but let's take us way back, Mr. Way, of where you grew up. Where did you find your love of teaching? Take us a little bit back in your history of where you grew up and where that first spark of teaching came from.
I mean, absolutely. And it's probably going to provide some foreshadowing as to where our conversation is going to head here. So I grew up in a small town, rural community, Muncie, Pennsylvania, right in the middle. They kind of make the joke. It's, kind of more of the Kentucky, Pennsylvania side of things. So I grew up in the rural Appalachian Hills. I call them hills now since I moved to Alaska. There's certainly not mountains anymore. Yeah. But I really got my love of teaching from my family. My mother and I have two very influential aunts who my mother taught high school for many years, and my aunts were college professors and very, very influential in my life and education. And then just throughout high school, took on community positions, local lifeguard, running kindergarten swim lessons. So I was just always involved in children's sports, even at a very young age, even when I was involved myself in children's sports, as it seemed. So I just seemed to have a knack for it and ran with it. And hopefully today still do.
So you and your wife taught at a very interesting place, one of your first stops after getting your college degrees. Talk to us a little bit about what it was like living and teaching in the Marshall Islands.
Oh my goodness. If you don't mind 80 degrees and sunny every day, I guess that's the best description. But once again, it kind of ties into where this conversation is going. It was a water world there. It was a small island community, only about a 30-mile stretch of land in the Central Pacific, 7 degrees above the equator. And I taught third grade. My wife taught fifth grade at the time. It was my first full-time teaching job, and it really opened my eyes up that, we can be traveling educators. We can bring just a quality sense of education and care for students and reading anywhere in the world, and truly have it from an educational standpoint. We were very, very lucky to have that door open. And ironically enough, that door opened up when I was at a remote location in Port Heiden, Alaska, doing a half-year teacher stint at the time. So went from Alaska to the tropics and then back to Alaska. So.
Nice. So one of the things, as I've gotten to know you over the years, is teaching for you doesn't ever just stop in the classroom. You do these extra things with kids, whether it's cross country or, sports programs, going above and beyond what I would say a normal teacher's expectations are during the year. Talk to me, about some of these things when you transitioned from the Marshall Islands to rural Alaska. What were some of those programs that you kind of came up with or spearheaded that were unique or cool that, that are maybe folks in the lower 48 that live in, downtown Seattle aren't going to see in their public schools?
Oh, absolutely. So I got, my feet wet coaching in Port Heiden, Alaska on my very short teacher stint. And then when we got to Point Lay, Alaska from the Marshall Islands, there was just a need there. It was a school that experienced a lot of turnover. And I've always been of the mindset that sports brings people together. Sports keeps kids off streets. Sports teaches the appropriate type of competition in the world. So there was just a need to be felt. It started with coaching basketball, and then it started with helping my wife coach volleyball. And then we said, there used to be a cross country team here. You're digging through the old jersey boxes and you pull out this dusty cross country uniform from, whatever year, and you say, we can do this here. So some of the wilder experiences of coaching cross country in the far north is the freezing ocean spray off of the Uktiakvik coastline, coming into, the back turns of regionals, flying everywhere, packing your team up and jumping on a 19-seat jet plane and heading off to some rural community, landing, sleeping at schools, community events, and then running races while people are standing there on bear watch. I mean, it's just, it's a whole different aspect, you're out there riding around on the school provided four-wheeler for practice. It's just, it's things you're not going to just see at your kind of run-of-the-mill urban school. So yeah. It added a whole new perspective as to what children can do when provided with opportunities.
That's awesome. So then you came to Nikiski, and you kind of took on some of those roles, right? You're coaching and you're teaching. Talk to me about a need that you saw in Nikiski as it relates to our little kids learning how to swim, and this idea that you came up with.
Absolutely. And I think I talked about the foreshadowing. So this all ties to, we partnered with North Peninsula Rec Center, and Eric Elton has been instrumental in reaching out to the community and making those community bonds. So they've opened up their entire pool facility to our school for several years now for pool parties. And each year, you just get to talking with parents and community members at these pool party events, and the constant term seems to be, I wish there was school provided swim lessons. I wish there was swim lessons, more opportunities for swim lessons. So just with that background, and with my experiences with the Marshall Islands and Point Lay and Port Heiden and Port Graham across the Kachemak Bay, you just saw so many students interacting with water and coastal living and fish-centric lifestyles, to the point where you're getting on skiffs without appropriate gear. You're in frigid water without the ability to necessarily swim if you fall in. So you just have those alarms go off in your head. And then when you have something like North Peninsula Rec Center and Eric Elton reach out and say, hey, we can do this, it's just your call to action. It's your opportunity. And you don't want to miss it when something of this magnitude hits, when you can take an entire school for a week's time period, 2 hours a day, and provide them water safety and swim lessons in the classroom, in the pool, hands-on, hands-off, with all the appropriate equipment and safety measures. You just don't pass that up.
Yep. So for folks listening, the North Star Elementary, which is where my kids go to, historically they haven't had swim lessons, right? Because there's not a swimming pool at the elementary school, but we do have one in our community, and so Colby saw a need, right? Kids need to learn how to swim. I think it's very important for folks to learn how to swim, and some of the kids, this could be their only opportunity to learn how to swim. I feel like for what you're spearheading here, and so you saw this need. Things cost money, right? We wish money would just fall from the trees. And so my guess is you made a couple phone calls, you got some budgets, and you figured, well, this still costs X amount of money. How the heck am I going to do this? Tell me about that.
Absolutely. I mean, it's always good to start at step one. It's always good to, tackle the first hurdle one at a time. And that's what it was. So we went and did what you need to do. We wrote the letters. We got out. We talked to people who were saying, hey, this needs to happen. And word spreads. I mean, the power of social media, the power of small community, it really came through in this instance. And, $100 here, $20 here, it starts to add up. And there's a list. I mean, I have this list of dozens of people from all over America, Alaska, and the world even, who saw just this one Facebook post of this one school in a small town in Alaska and said, you know what, that's super important. It's important to me. It's important to these kids. And were willing enough to open up their wallets a little bit and give what they could, because in these instances, I think we were talking a little bit before, if I'm finding $1 on the street, that goes to that account. I will use what we can and what we have to get this goal met. So we're about $2,000 in, and we're just kind of hitting the next wave of donations. We have couple more donation letters for businesses who've been gracious enough in the past. We're hoping to reach out to a couple of our Alaska partnerships here who are involved in child safety, ADF&G, the Kids Don't Float initiative, and just seeing what they can do. So right now, you just chip away at it. We have until January, and we've made a strong push, so it'll happen. It's coming through.
Yep. I think this is also a great picture for folks listening. There's going to be instances where you're going through the public school system and things aren't going to work correctly, right? Like we wish, like this could just get paid for, right? And everything would be, high fives and hugs. And sometimes you're going to face speed bumps. And this is a great example of folks in Nikiski coming together to solve a problem, right? And not really caring about who's right and who's wrong, and just saying like, okay, this is something that could be very beneficial to our kids. It only costs $5,000, which is not a whole lot of money. Let's chip in $5, $10, $100 at a time and see if we can make, ends meet on this. And I think other folks could be doing this in their communities, right? And instead of complaining all the time about stuff, you could be proactively solving problems. So what's that like to see that? Because I know that comes naturally to you, but do you have any thoughts on that? You could sit back and complain about everything, but you have taken a stance kind of in your life to be proactive about solving problems. Does that come naturally to you?
Please don't think that during these setting up these events there aren't a couple words mumbled while pacing the basement. Once again, you mentioned you always hit speed bumps, but and you mentioned coaching, and I do a lot of coaching. I run a lot of sports programs, and we're going to kind of make the connection here that in sports and throughout life you're always going to hit those speed bumps, and you're always going to get knocked down, and in that instance you really only have two avenues. You can either make the decision to get up and keep moving and keep fighting for that goal, or you can just stay right there. And that's kind of where, if I'm going to preach it, I have to live it as well. So if it comes out of my mouth and I say, hey, this is going to happen, then I have to back it up. And even if you get knocked down a few times, or you get told no a few times in this instance, there's 100 yeses somewhere out there. So it kind of comes down to that whole sports analogy again. If I get knocked down on the court or on the pitch or on the field, there's two options. I get back up and I can keep going at it the best I can, or I lay there or pull myself out of the game. So that's always been the mentality. It was always kind of put in me young, I guess, from that strong teacher background, and really just try to show it, not really speak it, to act on it. I've always been a big proponent of, your actions will always speak louder than your words. So
Nice. So let's say somebody, I think you've raised 2,000, you need 5,000. If somebody's listening and wants to donate, how could they donate? We talked a little bit about this before we hopped on here, potentially going to the school district's office or the elementary school's office and dropping off a check. Is that the best way?
correct. Yep. And it all comes down to amounts, of course. I mean, we want to keep everything up to board for everybody on the tax purposes. So any amount that is less than $2,000, so $1,999.99 and lower, you can just drop off a check as a personal donation. Anything 2,000 and over. And once again, these are gigantic numbers. This is just the verbiage behind it. But 2,000 and over would have to go through the district offices with a note made that it was being
Nice.
dog-eared for this fund, and that's just for the tax purposes, that they can get the right paperwork and receipts in, just so everybody's safe throughout the process. That's it.
Hey, you're having a good problem if people are giving $2,000 checks.
Once again, I'm still looking for quarters in the couch for this situation, so I'm not expecting any. Just what's out there and what's been given. Yeah.
So let's say this, I think it's going to happen. What does this practically look like? Is this a week? A week sometime in, the wintertime where all the school is going to learn how to swim, or is this going to happen over the course of several months? What does it look like?
Currently now we're looking at 5 weeks.
Nice.
Between basically all of January and a little bit into February. And of course, we had to fit it in between our upcoming cross-country ski season and our 4th and 5th grade 5-on-5 basketball season. So it's gonna occupy that 5 weeks. And what it looks like is it's going to be a station-based rotation. So we'll take a whole grade over in the morning, and they'll break up into, say, 4 or 5 stations where they'll have classwork. They'll have in the pool essentially safety, and that will be varied by grade. They'll have swim lesson stations, and then just some other various things that just tie into the water safety realm. It'll absolutely be varied by grade. So 5th grade might be more of the water safety, how to take care of yourself if you're in the water and in danger. Whereas, kindergarten first might be more of the basics: floating, kicking with a kickboard, putting your face in the water. So we're going to tailor it to the needs of the student.
Nice. Hopefully it catches on, and this is something you all do every year. I think it'd be great.
And that's always the hopes of these programs, and I hope it's happened through our sports programs as well. You start small, you start small, and you hope for the best, and it grows each year. Whether by force or organically, we make these things grow.
Well, I'm super thankful that you've spearheaded this. I think it's going to be something that kids are going to remember. We all remember those field trips that we took when we were a kid, and that's one of the, not only is that something like this, but it's also good for parents to just know that their kids are going to learn how to swim and have some water safety that they may otherwise not get. So kudos to you, Mr. Way, for doing this. Any last minute thoughts here before we head out?
Oh, absolutely. And I'm gonna mention that you did chaperone one of these pool parties, so I think you can see how much joy comes out of this, and how much our students do enjoy being in the water here. So just to give them that extra level of safety, oh, yeah. I think it would be a comfort for all involved. So get the word out. I really feel about we are going to get there. We are going to get there. So I should probably take that hope out. We are going to get there, and I really do appreciate this.
Nice. Well, I appreciate you coming on the show, Mr. Wade. You're right. I did chaperone one of those pool parties. I do remember that I had a line of, 20 kids, and they were all doing cannonballs into the water, seeing who could give the biggest splash, and nobody got hurt. My bar was nobody gets hurt and everybody has a good time. So I appreciate you coming on the show, and for folks interested in helping fund this program, which is not a program that existed a couple months ago. This is a program that Mr. Way dreamed of. Thought it'd be awesome to teach kids how to swim in the elementary school and teach them how to have water safety, partnered with our local pool to make it happen and to have that space be opened up for the kids, and has raised 2,000 of the 5,000, I think, so far. So if you want to help with this, you can drop off a check to North Star Elementary or the district. Just make sure that you put a little note in there, regardless of where you drop it off, that it goes to the Kids Learning How to Swim program, and I'm sure that it'll go to the right place. And I just thank you, Mr. Way, for doing this. And if folks like Must Read Alaska, you want to help keep the lights on here at Must Read Alaska, just go to mustreadalaska.com. On the right-hand side, there's a little donate button. Every $5, $10, $100 helps keep the lights on here at Must Read Alaska. And until next time, I'm John Quick from somewhere in Alaska. Thank you.